chapter 24, 36 through 41. Jesus stood among the disciples and said to them, "Peace be with you." And they were startled and terrified and thought that they were seeing a ghost. He said to them, "Why are you frightened? And why do doubts arise in your hearts? Look at my hands and feet. See that it is I myself. Touch me and see, for a ghost does not have flesh and bones as you see that I have." And when he had said this, he showed them his hands and his feet. While in their joy they were disbelieving and still wondering. Let's stop right there. That last line is where we get the burden of our message this morning. While in their joy they were disbelieving and still wondering. Let us consider for our theme, oxymoronic faith. Oxymoronic faith. As most of you know, an oxymoron is a figure of speech that combines contradictory terms. And as we see, oxymorons appear in a variety of contexts. Many oxymorons have been popularized in vernacular speech. Examples include controlled chaos, open secret, organized mess, alone in the crowd. These are all oxymorons. There are also examples in which the term that superficially is an oxymoron are juxtaposed in such a way that there really is no contradiction, at least in theory. Terms such as same difference, jumbo shrimp, pretty ugly, hot ice, civil war, military intelligence, and my favorite, a short sermon. These are all examples of what we come to know as oxymorons that are not oxymorons in theory. But oxymoronic faith is a little different. Oxymoronic faith can be understood as a faith expression that contradicts what we think faith should be. This morning's text comes on the heels of the Emmaus journey. That is very quickly the story of two pilgrims on their journey back home from Jerusalem, traveling in the daylight while under the shadows of rumor and innuendo that something miraculous had just occurred. It wasn't until they had journeyed with Jesus, ate with him, and after he left, that they said to one another, "Didn't our hearts burn within us while he talked with us by the way and while he opened us up to the scriptures?" In that same hour, they rose and returned to Jerusalem and found the 11 Jesus' disciples gathered together, and they said to them, "The Lord has risen indeed." Now, this is the second time the disciples of Jesus had received this information, but given where they were spiritually, the news once again served only to deepen their fears. Though I would never ever seek to diminish the power of someone's testimony. How someone realizes God ultimately is an individual experience. Moreover, someone with a testimony is never at the mercy of someone who just has an argument. But a testimony, in some respects, can be inadequate if the goal is to convince somebody else that God is real. Each of us must come to that moment where we find ourselves at the intersection of hope and hostility, peace and chaos, joy and sorrow, light and darkness, love and hate, to order to have our own testimony that begins, "My soul magnifies the Lord." Gardner Taylor Wiley understood to be the dean of black preaching. I would say he's the dean of preaching, period. Speaking on the power of preaching, says, now that you may tickle people's fancies, but you will never preach in their hearts until at some place, some solemn appointment has fallen upon your own life, and you've wept bitter tears and gone to your own Gethsemane and found your own Calvary. That's where the power of preaching is. It's not in the tone of the voice. It's not in the eloquence of the preacher. It's not in the playfulness of his or her gestures. It's not in the magnificence of the congregation. It is in a heart broken and put back together by the eternal God. So it is in this context, the disciples' reaction makes perfect sense. These men who had been handpicked by Jesus to transform the world through the radical and inclusive nature of inconvenient love are now cloaked in terror, concealed in doubt, suppressed by misgivings. They will huddle together in fear and a melancholy, self-imposed exile that allows them to see only what was and what could have been. You ever been there? Have you ever been in that place of disappointment, regret, remorse, guilt, or sorrow to the point that you can only see the past that could have been because the present is too painful to confront?
Amen.
And the future now seems inconsequential.
Amen.
The disciples had shut themselves up with a memory, stuck their thumbs in their ears to deaden the ugly sounds of the present, and put their hands over their eyes to not see the ghastly future that awaited. A future as they saw it, possibly including the same type of Roman brutality that was given to Jesus just a couple days earlier. Not even the news of the two travelers who saw Jesus that day, or the testimony from the women who possessed the courage that they did not have to stay until the final gruesome moment as Jesus took his last breath on Calvary and returned on the first day of the week to anoint his body, only to realize the grave was empty, or Jesus' own repeated forewarnings that the Son of Man would be beaten and executed on the third day and rise again was enough to transform their downtrodden spirit. These brothers were broken. Since the Friday when they buried Jesus, the disciples, based on the evidence available, were worse off than before they signed up for Jesus' project. All the assumptions they made about Jesus and what Jesus was going to do, it's all over now. Nothing made sense anymore. And for 48 hours, they banded together behind a locked door, galvanized by their fear and trepidation. They had only their mumblings, memories, and sleepless nights to comfort them. And this is where Jesus enters. Just as he enters our soul, comforting us in the midst of our mumblings, memories, and sleepless nights. As the disciples are discussing among themselves what had transpired the past few days, Jesus appeared saying, "Peace be with you." There is more than enough information to understand why they might be startled. They saw what happened to Jesus. They know that he was buried. So it's easy to understand why they thought they might be seeing a ghost. And right here we get our first glimpse of an oxymoronic moment. At the very moment when we need Jesus most, consumed by our fears, he comes bringing a gift of peace. The gift of peace comes not by seeking so much as it comes when a purpose in life has been returned. The disciples like us, when distress has invaded the lymph nodes of our soul, are not uneasy in distress just because they thought they were seeing a ghost. But also, with Jesus seemingly gone, they had lost their way. Peace is the absence of something when you believe you have lost your way. There's a void in your soul. That's when you lose peace. The distress they felt, the distress we feel, is like a child who longs to go outside, but there is no one to play with, and their toys all of a sudden become inadequate, so they spend their day with their face pressed against the window, wanting what cannot be. There comes a point when one has been in that particular state so long, they're unable to hear the response that they long for. I remember when Malik was a baby, and we had gotten him his first bed. And while he was in the crib, I'd always come in the room, and he'd wait for Daddy. I'd come in the room, he'd put his little hands up, and I'd pick him up out of the crib. But the first thing, he got his new bed. Even though it was a new bed, he still saw the barriers, even though they weren't there. So I walked in, he could have gotten out the bed, he still put his hands up. But not knowing he could get out for himself. Now, once he got out for himself, that was a whole different story. But even though what he had longed for, see, he couldn't hear it. Because he had been conditioned that that's the way it's going to be. And when we're unable to hear the response that we long for, that becomes that oxymoronic moment. Because this represents the oxymoronic moment that we don't want. We say we want peace, but when peace comes, we don't know how to receive it. The condition renders us unable to take advantage of the very transformation we say we want. Am I preaching to myself right now? Maybe I'm the only one here who has experienced the pain of life's absurdity in an intimate way that has left me unable to receive the gift of peace when I needed it most. Maybe it's just me. Am I the only one here so blinded by the pain of my present that I was unable to see Jesus when he bent me toward the pathway to peace that I couldn't recognize him? Because if I'm not the only one here, then we might view this text with an eye of compassion toward the disciples and ourselves. But there's another oxymoronic moment in the text. And this one leads to our oxymoronic faith. Beginning with verse 38, Jesus said to them, "Why are you frightened? Why do doubts arise in your hearts? Look at my hands and feet. See that it is I, myself. Touch me and see, for a ghost does not have flesh and bones, as you see that I have." And when he had said this, he showed them his hands and feet, while in their joy they were disbelieving and still wondering. While in their joy, they were still disbelieving and still wondering. I don't know about you, that sounds a little oxymoronic to me. In this seemingly oxymoronic moment rests a key component to the faith that we profess. In fact, it is impossible to be a follower and teacher of Jesus unless you possess an oxymoronic faith. What am I talking about? Let me see if I can unpack this. A cursory glance at this morning's text along with the subsequent verses, or the previous verses, in Luke's 24th chapter might cause us to miss the oxymoronic aspect of our faith. See, it wasn't enough that the women went to the tomb and found it empty. Not enough that they went and told the disciples that there was one who stood in the empty tomb with dazzling apparel, who asked them, "Why seek the living among the dead? He is not here, but has risen." The disciples thought that was an idle tale. It wasn't enough that two men had walked with the resurrected Jesus, went back to Jerusalem and sought them out to tell their story that their hearts burned within. It was not enough for Jesus to step in their locked door. They still thought they were seeing a ghost, still trapped by fear and confusion. And Jesus offers them a gift of peace. Wasn't enough until he showed them his hands and feet, and that had been replaced by some joy. But the text says they were still disbelieving and wondering, still had some